I want to announce Vetted's brand new merch line. Our Believe hat that you can see right here. Looking good. Our Believe t-shirt. This thing is awesome, I promise you. Go to vettedmerch.store. Check it out. Let me know what you think. What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today we're talking about this.
When someone comes out on mainstream media, right, that goes beyond the UFO community to people who've never really taken the topic seriously, maybe they're now considering taking the topic seriously, and they hear information, they're presuming that information's been vetted already, right? And when information is provided that hasn't been vetted, and worse, is completely not accurate, not even slightly accurate, it's completely false, then that's a problem, because we have an obligation in the media to do our due diligence, right? Journalistic integrity, things like that matter, because people are counting on you to vet information before you just spew it out, right? And that's why we have faith and confidence in our media outlets. And when you don't do that, you actually undermine not just the person that is the target of the misinformation, but you actually are undermining disclosure itself.
This one particular object, and it is silver. Now, I cannot vouch for the veracity of this photograph. I didn't take it. But this is an example of one of many, many, many incidents involving commercial and private pilots.
Lue's very litigious. Really? Show me one lawsuit that actually went to court that I gave again. And by the way, there's a lot of people that probably deserve it.
I don't think Lue is a litigious, and that fear is being used to manifest a hero's journey for certain people like Gerb or others. Why Ross Coulthart should stop calling himself a person with legal training, because you display the exact opposite of it. And it just shows an insecurity. And Megan, you're his producer. Tell him to stop. It's really weird.
It was just someone saying, I've got this information about Lue, and this is what happened with General Clapper, and that they were colluding to do some sort of controlled disclosure. That never happened. If Gerb or anybody else can prove that I colluded with Clapper to control this narrative, right, then I will apologize publicly to the American people, and I will leave ufology forever. Now, here's the other side of that. Here's the other side of that deal. You take this deal, and if you can't prove that, you have to leave ufology forever, and you have to leave journalism forever and never be a journalist again. That's how confident I am. That's right. And if your source, your information, where I know you're getting this information from, I will go toe-to-toe, and I will take a polygraph examination along with that source, and I'll make the same deal. If I fail that polygraph exam for those types of questions, I will leave ufology forever and apologize. But if I pass and the other person fails, they have to leave this topic forever. How about that?
One scam can cost you everything. A friend of mine once got a message that looked exactly like it came from his bank. Same logo, same language, even used his name. He clicked, logged in, and 20 minutes later, $1,000 was gone. The bank alerts only showed up after the money had already been moved. And that's the part nobody talks about. Most of the tools we already use, password managers, bank notifications, antivirus, are good at warning you. They're not good at getting money back or walking you through the weeks of calls and paperwork that follow. That's why I use Coverrun. It watches the dark web for my personal info, alerts me the second my logins or payment details get exposed, tracks my credit and any new accounts that get opened in my name, and gives me real financial backup. Up to $2 million identity theft recovery costs, and up to $10,000 if I lose money to online fraud or scams, plus actual people who guide you step by step, instead of leaving you to figure it out alone. I keep it running in the background every day. It's the only thing that makes me feel like I'm not just hoping hoping nothing happens. I'm actually covered. If it does, one scam can cost you everything. Protect yourself now. The first 100 people get 20% off with the code VETTED at coveron.com/vetted. That's coveron.com/vetted, code VETTED. The link is also in the description. It's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So grab it while the discount is still available. All right, Vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. All right, y'all. So I'm still on the road filming my new documentary for Vetted, and very excited. Just got done with Psy Games in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was great. There'll be a lot coming out about that. But we've got other things to cover because I haven't stopped making Vetted videos. So let's get to today's video because it is about Lue Elizondo and really responding and laying out some ultimatums, essentially to UAP Gerb and Ross Coulthart. So we've got a lot to cover here. Lue Elizondo's brand new comments about Gerb and Ross Coulthart. Also, Lue Elizondo's lawyer has decided to step in and make some comments, and as well as Ross Coulthart responding to all of this as well. So let's get started. Now, if you want a little backstory, I did make a video about this recently. I'm going to put a link in the description. Here's the thumbnail, right? Go check it out if you want more information about where this kind of all started, okay? But we're getting into the responses today. So let's jump in first to Ross Coulthart responding to the comments him and Gerb have made about Lue Elizondo. And essentially what they're saying is that Lue Elizondo was part of some, secret UFO program, and that he helped cover it up with someone named James Clapper, right, who you may have heard of. And essentially Lue and him and other people have been controlling the narrative out there. And so Gerb and Ross basically called that out, and Lue Elizondo was not happy about that and has made some comments, right? So that's what this is all about. And again, there's more detail in that video if you want to check it out. But this is Ross Coulthart responding to a video that Lue Elizondo had made in his car. So just his initial response to things. I have another interview he did on another podcast that we're getting into today. So again, this is Ross Coulthart responding to the whole fiasco.
And I do appreciate what you're doing, Ross, but please, for the love of God, be more careful with who you decide to have on your program.
All right, Ross.
Fire away. So look, what I can say, I'm going to be very careful here, Megan, because I like and respect both men. And I don't doubt for a moment that Lue is a friend of disclosure. And I think the issue is that historically, it's not just me and it's not just UAP Gerb Sam. There have been questions raised about the real nature of ATIP and its relationship to the ORSAP program, and whether Lue did hold the role in the supervisory role that he held inside the Pentagon as described. At different times, there have been question marks raised. And one of the things actually that Lue says in the longer version of that interview, and I recommend everybody goes and listens to it, is that he's still very, very heavily constrained, even though the president has issued this directive about non-disclosure agreements. If Lue did have a role in any way in the legacy UAP program, he's still constrained by his security oaths from speaking about that publicly. And if the president really is interested in transparency and full disclosure, and I wonder sometimes whether he is, it would be important, I think, to see good men like Lue Elizondo released from those obligations of secrecy. I hope people understand that there is a method to the madness here, and there are a lot of people concerned to make sure that if we are moving towards a big D disclosure process, the full story be told. And that's why I've spoken to people inside the program who are supportive of the need for people like Lue to be able to speak frankly and openly about what's really going on. There is a method to this madness. I'll have to leave it at that. But suffice to say, respect and admire both men, and thank you, Lue, for your kind words. Obviously, time will tell?
And to be honest, that's just not really much of an answer. I mean, really, Lou didn't have kind things to say about Ross, right? And Ross like, thank you for the kind words, Lou. Did you listen to it, Ross? Right? Interesting. And then, wait till you hear what Lue Elizondo's lawyer said about Ross, and what Lou said in his new interview about Ross. So I don't know. Very weird. It's all weird. I don't really trust any of these people. I don't know what's going on. It's all just weird. We're all just watching it, right? Like Real Housewives, wondering what is going on. Like, we don't care, dudes. We don't care. Show us the proof and evidence of aliens and forget all this nonsense, right? Because again, Luis Elizondo goes on another podcast run by this guy named Vinny Adams. Vinny, great guy, really like him. I've been on his show. And he has Luis Elizondo on and decides to ask him about this stuff, which I appreciate. And Luis Elizondo's response, it's a lot. It's a whole hour-and-a-half interview, but we're just going to cover a small part of it. But let's go through it because I want to react to many different parts of this clip that I've set aside. So let's get started.
So Lou, there was recently a very public disagreement between yourself, UAP Gerb, following comments he made during an interview with Ross Coulthart about your alleged connection to the Legacy program. Now, I appreciate that accusations around someone's integrity can be taken very seriously, especially in a subject where trust is so important. A lot of people in this community have a great deal of respect for both of you, and many were disappointed to see two people they admire at odds. What would you like those people to understand about what happened and where your head's at today, now that you've had some time to reflect on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed too. I mean, it upset me enough where I literally pulled over on the side of the road and decided to make a video to counter the baseless accusations. Look, when social media is one thing, right? We all understand social media can be a dumpster fire, and pretty much anybody and everybody can jump in. It's like this proverbial mosh pit where you have these factions of, well, we're Team Lou, well, we're Team so and so, we whatever. I don't really have time to pay attention much to that. But when someone comes out on mainstream media, right, that goes beyond the UFO community to people who've never really taken the topic seriously, maybe they're now considering taking the topic seriously, and they hear information, they're presuming that information's been vetted already, right? And when information is provided that hasn't been vetted, and worse is completely not accurate, not even slightly accurate, it's completely false, then that's a problem because we have an obligation in the media to do our due diligence, right? Journalistic integrity, things like that matter because people are counting on you to vet information before you just spew it out, right? And that's why we have faith and confidence in our media outlets. And when you don't do that, you actually undermine not just the person that is the target of the misinformation, but you actually are undermining disclosure itself, because the general public hears that and they get wrong information. Then later, when it turns out to be, like in this case, completely not factually correct, then people walk away with confusion, right? And say, well, why is this the way it is? And why am I hearing this when it's that? And it creates confusion. And it actually can do even be more. It can create a sense of resentment for some people, and fear. And so we have to be very careful. That's why I'm always, even when we're talking, right? If there's something I don't know, I say I don't know. There's things that I think, things that I know, and then there's things that I have no clue about. And that's where we have to be careful. And when you're using dubious sources of information, right, or what we call even hearsay. Well, so and so, I heard them say that, and I heard that's not information, right? That's gossip. You gotta show the receipts. Otherwise, don't speak about it, because in this particular case, that information that came out was wrong. And all someone had to do was pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, Lou, like your neighbor, right? Like, hey, you go to your neighbor, he's selling a car. Hey, is that true? You're selling your car? Right? Oh, actually, I'm not selling it. I'm giving it to my niece. Oh, okay. Just clarifying. That never happened in this particular case. It was just someone saying, I've got this information about Lou, and this is what happened with General Clapper, and that they were colluding to do some sort of controlled disclosure. That never happened. That never happened. And I think it's disingenuous when people just go out there and just speak to mainstream media as if they've done their due diligence, and they haven't. Um, Not only is it unfair to the person that you're directing it against, right? Frankly, you could be careful. You got to be careful because you cross the lines with defamation and other things, slander. But it what it does is create confusion. And in this particular case, News Nation, which is mainstream media, now risks maybe never wanting to cover this topic again because the backlash has been fierce. It's like, oh wow, we're putting out information that was wrong, right? It was completely wrong. Um, and look, I know where the source of some of this information is coming from. People know me, as you probably know me. I don't like to talk negatively about people. If I have nothing positive to say, I typically don't say it. So that's why people are like, oh, Lou, what's your response? I said my response in a video on the side of the highway, right? So bottom line, the information was just completely false, erroneous, and I take exception to it because if they do it to me, I've got to look. I can get on a podcast with you, and I got a voice. But what about somebody else who doesn't have that, right? They're just going to sit there and be victimized to false information, and there's not a damn thing they can do about it. That's wrong. That that morally, ethically, potentially even legally, I don't know. Then the other allegations are, oh well, Lou's very litigious. Really? Show me one lawsuit that actually went to court that I gave again. And by the way, there's a lot of people that probably deserve it. There's a lot of folks out there that said a lot of horrible crap about me. That's not true. That I absolutely could have sued, and I didn't. Right. So these are the things. This is when people say things like this, they have no facts to back it up.
All right, so there's a lot there that I want to pick apart. Lou talking about people just coming out with things and saying things without any proof, right? No receipts, not showing the receipt. Lou does that all the time. He's doing it in this same interview that he's talking in. He shows no receipts for any of the things he says. No evidence, no proof, no nothing. That's the grand irony of the whole thing. But let's go back in time, right? Lou was the guy who at a Disclosure Foundation event, like about a year and 4 months ago, showed the famous photo of an irrigation circle. Didn't vet any of it, brought it out, presented it as a UFO photo and as an example of what civilian and commercial airline pilots are seeing because a pilot had given him this photo. You remember this video?
I have received permission today to share this with you. It is a lenticular object, and when you look at the shadow being cast, it is significantly large. This is an altitude of 21,000 feet. Taken by a civilian pilot. Now, why is this important? I'll pass this around. I'll open the top of your teeth, Kirkland, you're finished as well, please pass it on down to them. This is taken from a civilian pilot. Right? Not a FLIR system, not an infrared system, but an average person with an average camera at 21,000 feet. And the object potentially is anywhere between 600 to 1,000 feet in diameter. It's a lenticular object, and it is silver. Now, I cannot vouch for the veracity of this photograph. I didn't take it. But this is an example of one of many, many, many incidents involving commercial and private pilots. And guess what? They don't know where to report it. Guess what? Congress has no idea that this has happened on a regular basis. That's a problem.
Yeah, you see, it turns out that was fake. That was an irrigation circle. Literally, that wasn't even a photograph. It was printed off of Google Maps. People found it instantly. Within an hour, it was debunked. That was during a live stream, right? So what's Lou talking about? You also come out with things you don't vet or have receipts for. Nothing, no pilot gave that to you, right? He just made up a whole pilot story, or that pilot just straight up lied to him, I guess, and gave him a Google Map picture, and he just believed it and went on a stage and talked about it, right? I mean, it's stupid. What is Lou talking about? Essentially, Gerb and Coulthart are doing the same thing, right? They're going out with information maybe they haven't vetted. I don't know. We don't know if they vetted the stuff. Trust me, I made my own video about that. That's what I'm saying. I just don't know what's going on with any of these guys. I really just don't trust anybody at this point with what this stuff. But Lue makes no sense. Sorry, this just makes no sense. He does the exact same thing. And that wasn't the only one. He also showed this photo right here that was a chandelier, a mothership that pilots had told him about, right? Guess what? Turns out that was a reflection of a chandelier in a window. That's all it was. Again, that was found out within an hour. And you may be saying, Patrick, we don't know if that's true. No, Lue came out and acknowledged that he got fooled both times, right? And they weren't real photos, right? Again, who are these pilots that he spoke to, right? Again, something's not adding up about Lue either. He showed no proof or receipts for anything he spoke about. So should he just stop? Should he go away? Should he consider not covering the topic? So that's what he's suggesting about News Nation. And there was no huge backlash like he's trying to insinuate, right? Like he's got some big power that News Nation isn't going to cover UFOs anymore because of him. Are you kidding me? You know the numbers they do on UFOs? News Nation is not going to stop running UFO stories. They don't care if it's true or not. They just like the numbers it brings. So it's just funny to hear Lue talk like this. Again, it's just hilarious to me, to be honest, right? And then he says he's not litigious and show me someone I've taken to court. Lue, your lawyers literally have gone online. Multiple lawyers you've had. There are screenshots. I've seen it myself with my own eyes. They threaten people in Twitter comments all the time. No one else is doing that except Lue's lawyers. So he wants to say, well, we don't take him to court. Yeah, because you threaten people and you send letters and they back off. You don't have to take them to court. A lot of legal proceedings are done outside of court. I would say the majority of legal proceedings are outside of court. Things are handled before they ever get to a court case. See, Lue's leaving all of that out. And I'm just talking about what I've seen with my own eyes, right? Forget what other people have seen. And these lawyers don't hide. Remember when I told you Lue Elizondo's lawyer came out and said something? Yeah, check this out.
I don't think Lue is a litigious, and that fear is being used to manifest a hero's journey for certain people like Gerb or others. Why Ross Coulthart should stop calling himself a person with legal training, because you display the exact opposite of it. And it just shows an insecurity. And Megan, you're his producer. Tell him to stop. It's really weird.
No, Ivan, you're really weird, dude. Right? That's Ivan Honnell. That is Lue Elizondo's lawyers, one of them. You want to say he's not litigious and you're his lawyer speaking up for him? Again, it's so weird. It's all so weird. All these people are weird. This guy calling out other people as being weird while he's the weird one, right, as well. I'm weird too. We're all weird, right? Were we singling people out here? But look, he didn't stop there.
When you guys do this, you're always looking to create this idea that you're victims of some grand conspiracy involving the government and a program. You're a grand conspiracy because there's secret forces against you and yada, yada, Sith Lord almost, or a Voldemort, somebody behind the scenes, shadowy. And you keep on doing this. And you guys always are like you're victims of something, that you're set upon, you're beset by, again, and this allows you to be the hero of your own fictional journeys. Well, let me tell you something. Let me talk about real people in real danger and then compare yourselves to them, okay? Are you, let's say, an American soldier in the Middle East right now? If you're not, shut up. You don't have anything to worry about.
What's ironic about that whole little spiel he just gave? That describes Lue Elizondo too, his own client. Oh, and he rambled more about that kind of stuff, right? Lue Elizondo is always talking about how he's in danger with black helicopters. They followed him, you know what I mean? Reprisal. It's it's hilarious. And look, in that video, I didn't even show it. It's a 6-7 minute video, I think. he spends 80% of it just ripping Ross Coulthart a new one, right? Just, again, kind of hilarious. Because, see, that's Lue's strategy. He goes out and says one thing, but then he has his cronies go behind and say other things. And that's what people mean when they say people in Lue's orbit threaten and harass people. Because they do. Right? So, again, I'm not the biggest Gerb fanboy here. Made my own videos about him. But, you know, I don't think Lue really has, I don't think really Lue has a leg to stand on here, if I'm being honest. So again, I don't really trust any of them. Gerb, Ross, Lue, all of it's a mess. If you ask me, Lue's lawyer, it's just all a mess. And we're all just supposed to watch this and take sides. And you know what I mean? It's like, dude, we're here for aliens and UFOs. What are y'all talking about? Because nobody cares. Right? And we have to deal with this and we have to go through it. Right? One thing I do agree with what Lue is saying, but it should be applied to him as well, which he doesn't do. Show proof, show evidence. You know how many times Lue Elizondo has come on the news? And if I had more time, I would just show you a whole compilation of different things. You can find it for yourself, right? Lue saying a bazillion things without any proof or evidence. Everything he says is without proof or evidence. Everybody in this community does that. You really can't single out one person. It's everybody. Everyone that makes big claims hardly ever has any evidence. And the little evidence they have is more oftentimes very inconclusive and circumstantial. Proof, forget it. You're never going to see that. So again, I don't think Lue really has, any leg to stand on here. Oh, and by the way, Ivan Hanel, Lue's lawyer, also decided to go after Eric Burleson in his video. And Eric Burleson put out this response. This is a real response from the congressman from Missouri, Eric Burleson. Check out this tweet. Is there a gift for that time when you're trying to have a vacation with your family and Lue Elizondo's attorney decides to attack you? Not for anything you said, but for something that someone said who might have gotten that information from your employee. This is the best gift I could find. Please share if you find one better. What's going on? It's all just a shit show. Really what's happening, and it's not getting named here, is it's David Grush versus Lue Elizondo. Gerb is going out for Grush, and people are going out for Luis Elizondo. Ivan Hanel, other people that speak for Lue, and Lue himself, right? And I guess Ross is over here on the Gerb side with David Grush. I don't know. But that's essentially it. It's Grush versus Elizondo. That's what's happening, right? They're fighting, and we're watching it unfold. So I don't know. Is this going to bring out some proof? Do I think Lue Elizondo needs to be called out? Yes. Yes, I do. But unfortunately, I also have issues with the people doing the calling out. They're not exactly free from this stuff. They also come up with crazy, fantastical claims that can't be proven. Again, I don't trust any of them. That's what it's showing me. Yeah, oh my God. Okay, they're all just weird. I don't know what's going on. I'm not saying they can't be trusted or aren't trustworthy. I'm just saying the confusion, the ambiguity, my distance from the truth keeps me from being able to trust any of it by default, because I can't get a full view of the picture of what's going on. So by default, I just don't trust any of it. I think that's where we're all standing, at least a lot of us, right? We just can't trust any of this. How are we supposed to? Just the way you sound, I should just trust you, right? Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way, in my opinion. For me personally, you do what you like and let me know what you think in the comments. But we're not done, because Luis Elizondo was not done talking about Gerb and Ross and the whole situation.
None. Or another comment was, well, Lue never talked about crash retrievals. Yes, I did. There's actually threads where I've done that. And of course, people just say things off the cuff because they think, well, I'm going to get my point across. Well, but if you're saying false information, you're not. You're actually doing a disservice to yourself. You're doing a disservice to your audience. You're doing a disservice to the media company that's carrying your message. You're actually doing the opposite. You're creating literally a conspiracy theory when you're the one saying, I'm trying to uncover the conspiracy and, we're trying to get to the truth. You're actually adding on to the conspiracy because you're providing false information. And so that's a problem for me. Now, do I take it personally in this case? Yeah, a little bit.
Again, the funny part here is Luis Elizondo saying, like, you're adding to the conspiracy theory. Dude, that's what Luis Elizondo does all the time. What are we talking about? It's hilarious to watch all these guys point the finger at each other. To me, they're all in the same boat, pointing at a hole in the boat that the water's coming through, going, you're screwed, man. Look at that water coming out of the boat. You're going down. You're in the same boat, dude. You're also going down, right? It's just like all these guys are just in a boat with holes in it that water's coming in, and they're trying to single each other out like they're somehow different or on a different boat. You're not. You're all on the same boat, unfortunately. That's the outside perspective. Now, there may be a behind-the-scenes perspective that, no, there are the sort of good versus evil, good for disclosure, bad for disclosure. We don't know any of that stuff, and I guarantee you a lot of people just don't care. But, again, Luis Elizondo is not done because he decided to, get a little personal with Gerb and kind of talk a little bit more about him. Specifically the first time he met him.
I've never met Gerb in my life until maybe about a month and a half ago in Washington, D.C. He came uninvited, I guess he was invited to there's still some discussion about that. I think somebody invited him to a dinner that we were having for UAPDF. And boy, there were a lot of people that were unhappy with him. So I literally, out of the goodness of my own heart, I'm like, wow, what's going on here? So there's just people circling this one guy. I say, hey, man, why don't you step over with me? Because it looked like things were starting to get a little bit heated. And I said, hey, what's the problem? And someone said, hey, that's that Gerb guy. And he's been talking a lot of crap and it's not true. And he comes over and he talks to us nicely. And then he goes and he says things that aren't true. And all they had to do was talk to us. And I said, well, yeah, I understand that. So I talked to the guy and I said, look, here's my number. Here's my direct number. If you ever have, I don't know who the hell you are, but if you have any questions about anything, I'm approachable. Vinny, you know this, right?
Sure.
Ross, everybody knows that I'm the worst at keeping my phone private because I want people to know the truth. If you have a question, ask me. And if I don't have an answer, I'll tell you that too. This is another one of those cases where somebody could have just done that. And of course, people come back, well, the video was done, a couple hours before that event that you met him. That's even worse. That's now you've known you had a conversation with somebody about me. You've met me. You now have my number. Before it goes out and gets distributed, wouldn't you want to validate, hey, listen, is this true? What's your side of the story? But that never happened. And I think that's problematic, because I've committed myself for the last 10 years to this topic, trying to get the truth out every way I can without putting myself in jail for violating my non-disclosure agreement, right? But there's all this false information that's been put out about me in the past and even now, and it needs to be corrected. And I look, I don't have the time every time to get on a platform and correct the record because I never get any work done with disclosure. I'd spend all my time doing that. But I'm not really worried about the internet trolls and the haters out there. I know who they are. They're inconsequential. They probably what they need to do is probably get a job and get out of their mother's basement. But that's neither here nor there. My problem is when someone gets on mainstream media and starts doing things, especially on a program like News Nation, right? That's been committed to disclosure and transparency and is actually trying to get this information out, and they get duped, right? They get somebody to come out there and put information that's just factually incorrect. Now, is Gerb responsible for that? Yes, he is, absolutely. But does he have the experience and the savvy to understand how media really works? Well, maybe he doesn't. And so I'm willing to give him a pass for that. But hopefully in the future, now that he's got my number, he'll actually take me up on that offer and call me before he starts putting out this nonsense. And by the way, other people too. I'm not the only person. You have no idea how many calls I got from people saying, oh man, I ran into that guy last year and I said XYZ and he turned turned around and said, I said ABC. That's why I did what I did. And look, I said my piece. I'm not going to say anything else about it.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I just don't believe that story went down the way Luis Elizondo is describing it, because he had talked about it before in his other video that Gerb was crying and Lou came in, swept in and took him in his arms and come here, buddy. Let me, I got you, Gerb. You know what I mean? Like, what? It sounds so made up. I mean, I think something happened. I think Lou approached Gerb and, there was people talking to Gerb, all these things. I just don't believe all the details that Luis Elizondo's adding in, right? He's literally, exaggerating a story while trying to talk about the truth and this and be honest about, what's going on and don't add false narrative. And he's doing the same thing. Right in the same video, he's talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody believes that story, dude. The way you're laying it down. Nobody believes it that way at all. And then he gave Gerb his number. I guess he just gives it out to anybody he doesn't know. Okay. I find that hard to believe. And look, there's way more to this interview that Vinny Adams did with Luis Elizondo. So I'm going to put a link in the description. Go check it out for yourself. Talks about a lot of other things that I really have a lot of problems with and would love to react to, but this will be such a long video. So let's jump to the part I teased at the beginning, which is Luis Elizondo laying down an ultimatum for UAP Gerb.
Yes, I agree. I agree completely. And, we talk about in this so far, we've mentioned the UFO community and the way that they take things. And it's unfortunate that we still have to talk about this, but there are still people out there that are doing things in a negative way in your name. And I wonder if you had a message for them people directly.
Yeah, look, this isn't a popularity contest. I'm not asking you to like me or dislike me. What I'm asking you to do, though, is be honest. If someone's paying you, like some of these people are being paid to spout out false information, you're part of the problem. And I've got no sympathy for that because you have an ulterior motive, and you're being influenced by somebody to push a false narrative. No excuse for that. If someone's promising you something, or you're doing this, you're putting out false information because there's some sort of end game that you're trying to achieve. Again, I've got no patience for that. Now, if you put out wrong information simply because you got wrong information, okay, got it. Be accountable. Say, yep, I got that wrong. Let's move on. I'll tell you, Vinny, I was tempted to do something, and maybe I'll do it anyways. Let me put this out there. If Gerb and look, by the way, for the record, I love Ross, right? I do. He's a good dude. He's done a lot for disclosure, but I think this was a mistake he did. He did not vet the information properly, and it turned out to be inaccurate. But if Gerb or anybody else can prove that I colluded with Clapper to control this narrative, right, then I will apologize publicly to the American people, and I will leave ufology forever. Wow. Now, here's the other side of that. Here's the other side of that deal. You take this deal, and if you can't prove that, you have to leave ufology forever, and you have to leave journalism forever and never be a journalist again. That's how confident I am. That's right. And if your source, your information, where I know you're getting this information from, I will go toe-to-toe, and I will take a polygraph examination along with that source, and I'll make the same deal. If I fail that polygraph exam for those types of questions, I will leave ufology forever and apologize. But if I pass and the other person fails, they have to leave this topic forever. How about that?
All right. Yeah, that's hilarious. So Luis Elizondo is saying he'll leave ufology if Gerb can prove that he worked with James Clapper, all right, to move this narrative. And if not, Gerb has to leave the topic forever. And I guess he's talking about Ross Coulthart too, stop being a journalist. I don't know. It's just such a stupid ultimatum that's never going to happen. And Luis Elizondo knows that, but he thinks this makes him sound tough. Now he's willing to put it on the line for what he believes in the truth. And if, this is my ultimatum, dude, that's how you know I'm serious. Nobody thinks you're serious except your fanboy cronies that eat up everything you did. You could shit in a bucket and show it to them and they'd be excited. So that's not really that exciting, if you ask me. So it's just such a weird ultimatum. This is not going to happen, right? And polygraphs have, lie detector tests have so many problems with them. It doesn't measure if you're lying. It measures if you're like stressed, right? Like, and you don't think Lue Elizondo's been trained to fake that? Again, stupid ultimatum, stupid thing to say. It's just to kind of bow up and, you know, be bigger than Gerb. And, you know, it's just, it's to intimidate him. That's all this is for, is to intimidate him. But hey, Gerb's coming out and saying things about Lue. He definitely has, it's fair for him to come out and respond. That's true, right? I think people are just picking apart the response, right? Which I agree. But again, I don't trust any of them. That includes Gerb and Ross and Lue and all these people. Again, they're all in the same boat, if you ask me. I have no way to know who's better than the other, or who's this or who's that or whatever. So I don't know, you know. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm sure it's going to get crazy. People coming in to defend Gerb, people coming in to defend Lue Elizondo. You know, I will say Lue Elizondo fans and Gerb fans are very similar, because they can be some of the most toxic fans I've ever seen in the community, are fans for Gerb and fans for Elizondo. I'm just saying, it's kind of an interesting correlation there. But I'm sure they're going to be in the comments of this video 100%. So anyway, we'll see you guys on the next one. I'm still traveling around, going to Vegas on Wednesday to hang out with Gino from the Y-Files, because then we're going to Tucson to see Chris Ramsey's show. It's on the It's Probably Nothing tour. Very excited about that. So anyway, a lot of stuff coming up, cool stuff. But I'm still going to be popping out videos. So again, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Remember that every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.